Oh no, it's a gentleman cat.
You can start, James, it's recording.
I'm going to talk about cats. Cats. Right, so we're going to talk about paper prototyping, not with cats. Well, it's up to you. If you want to paper prototype a game about cats, then that's fine. That would be awesome. So, yeah. So, what we're going to try and do today, I've brought some bits and pieces in to make some paper-based versions of games. But paper prototyping is a way of... Hello? Sorry. Paper prototyping is a way to make video games on the cheap, so to speak, and in a small amount of time. Because when you're prototyping out ideas for a video game, you don't want to build like a whole bunch of stuff, do like a lot of programming and build a load of art assets and things like that for a game that might not play too well. So the developers turn to paper prototyping for certain aspects of games. Paper prototyping isn't suitable for every aspect of a video game, of course, because if you think about a game like a first-person shooter or something like that, you wouldn't really be able to take aspects of a board game to model that exact gameplay in a paper perspective. That's not really a doable thing, but you can model certain aspects of a game about that, like you could model some aspects about how the damage system would work or the inventory system or something like that. But the moment-to-moment gameplay is not always possible. Sometimes for some types of games it's possible, but often it's not. For more RPG-oriented games, there's definitely systems out there that you would want to look at. There's the original D&D games, which modern RPGs are kind of based upon. I'll give you some links for that in a bit. But yeah, paper-based versions of games are made to sort of help understand aspects of gameplay and part of the player experience, kind of explaining how that would work, how the player would see certain things with the game or interact with certain elements of the game. Parts of the games that can be tested, so there can be, like I was saying a minute ago, there's some mechanics that you can test out as parts of games. Some of the balancing aspects of the game, like I was saying, if you have a system of combat between two like types of players, or a player and an AI opponent, you can do some aspects of balancing the game and how damage is taken or how items are swapped. Some rules of the game can be tested, and parts of the game system can also be tested. So yeah, the bottom line is, because it saves time and money to do these things in paper before building digital versions of it, I would say this is a bit of a crossover nowadays, that there's tools out there that can help you paper prototype. I'll be talking about in a bit that would actually help you save even more time and money than cutting out bits of paper. There are some pre-made things that you can go check out. Has anybody heard of the term virtual tabletop? No? It's, this is the new D&D thing, is where you can have a virtual tabletop in a browser and play games online against each other, but they're sort of versions of D&D that are actually the desktop. Anyway, so yeah, board games are used because it's fairly quick to set up a game. It's kind of easy to spot holes in the gameplay rather than setting up a load of code and worrying about how to manage the code and errors with it and stuff like that. You just have a piece of paper, which is generally easier for people to spot errors in the gameplay or balancing issues with gameplay. Is that right? So common rules would be the setup. The setup of a game in a board game would be what pieces belong to the player, what actions or moves belong to the player, what mechanics the player can do in the game, what assets or resources they have access to, like how much health or how many points or how much money or something like that. Of course, there's a victory condition which needs to be met for the game, so you need to find out how the game is won. I think I've explained to you guys that a game without a victory condition for the game is more considered a toy. That's not to say that it's a very simple game. A game like a SimCity would be considered a toy because it's not got an end condition, it's just managing the city or managing the place, and that's the whole game. Of course, how the progression of play continues, so that would be for a board game, it would be whose turn it is next, who goes first, and who goes after them, and then what they need to do within their go in order to finish their go and for the next player to play. And of course, player actions is what they can actually do during the player's turn. So the setup is firstly a rule that describes how the game begins, where pieces go at first, like placing them on the actual play area. and like I said before, what resources the player actually receives. So the game needs at least one rule. That's the thing. Oh yeah, I've already mentioned about MMOs. I'm skipping ahead a bit. But yeah, it needs at least one rule to say that this player has won this thing. Otherwise, it's a toy. Unfortunately, in some board games, it would appear that they're a bit broken. So if you've ever played Monopoly, then you know that that game's not broken. It's like that on purpose. But you do know that if you play that game, you might be there for some time playing it because it drags on and on and on, where somebody's trying to snare you into their hotel and trying to make you bankrupt. And that can carry on for a while. That's actually the point of that game, though. That's the point of Monopoly. It's like when you achieve a Monopoly, there's no winning. That's the game itself. It's quite succinct. So progression of play. Firstly, it's of course of who goes first. Usually in board games or card games, I've found that there's two choices about who goes first in a game. It's either usually the youngest or the oldest person, or you do like a coin or a die toss. Is the game turn-based or real-time? So a lot of board games are usually turn-based, but there are some real-time board and card games out there. One I recommend is called Pit. That's a lot of fun. How players deal with resources. So what can the player do with resources during a turn or in between turns? How players can trade a resource and how does that work? These are all things that you should think about in your games. So player actions. You've probably heard me talk before about game mechanics and how they're doing words and verbs, but when you read out on the wider internet about game mechanics and what they are, what they do, there's a lot of confusing language around it, so I generally stick to it's a doing word: jumping, running, shooting, dodging, things like that. So I would suggest that when you make your board game, when you talk about the mechanics of the board game, refer to them as a doing word. That's something that you do in the game. A piece pack is, I've got a couple of these lined up on the table in front of you. They've been used and battle tested over a couple of years, so there's a couple of bits missing, and there's a couple of still sticky bits where I've glued together with Pritt sticks some of the new cards and things. So if you open up a pack and there's a couple of sticky bits, it's just Pritt stick, okay? So,
they all
Pritt
say
sticks
that.
the Pritt sticks on the table there, right? That's my alibi. But yeah, a piece pack is to board games what a deck of cards is to card games. So as you know, with a deck of cards, you have 4 suits, and you have a number of cards in these suits, and they're all split up into like these logos and these colours. The piece pack is exactly the same. It's this setup where you've got sort of 4 player pieces, a die of each colour, or a 6-sided dice. Some kind of representative coins or tokens of each colour. They all have their own symbols, so one's like a moon, one's like a crown, I can't see what that one is. And also you get these tiles. So these tiles are 2-sided, so one's got a grid on one side, and on the other side it's got like a numbered system with a logo and a blank card on it. So you can sort of make some rules up about that. There is a website for piece pack with people who have made games with it with just this normal set of piece pack pieces. You might want to check out. I will point that out in a sec. Some examples of paper-based games. These aren't made with the piece pack, but they're really nice examples of very doable like iterations of a game. Oh, I was clicking on that. Did that not work? Did we click? Okay. So this is like an interactive kind of JavaScript version of a sort of paper-based game. The idea is to collect all of these orange monsters. You're this robot in the middle, and what you do is you have a set of cards here. If you notice, it says rotate 90 degrees on this first one, and it says move 1 on this next one. These guys all repeat this. So what happens when I click run program is this guy will run each of these one after the other, kind of like a little program. So if I do that, then you'll see this guy move. So it rotates, move forward, rotate, and then rotate, rotate. So it rotates around about 3 times at the end there, and I can change that. So if I say move 1, move 1, move 1, so he's going to rotate 90 degrees. This is clockwise, sorry. So he's actually going to run into the wall. So I'll let him move 1, and then I'll rotate him. So he's going to rotate down, move 1, and then go that way. There we go. exciting stuff. So, yeah, this is a game that you can quite easily make on a paper prototyping like board or something like that, or out of paper pieces, and you can plan out like puzzles and things like that that the player can do. You can also plan out how you're going to distribute resources for the player. So this could be the movement, this could be the amount of health, it could be a time limit, something like that. Another one is Us versus It. This is by Stone LeBron. His website is Stonetronics. He's a really awesome game designer. I think he works for Electronic Arts, but he's done quite a few awesome paper prototype games. I've just pitched a couple, put them up here, but I'll take you to the website. So he's done a bunch of games on here, which I would recommend if you want to look further into this, you go and check out. Some of these are pretty awesome. Where was it? So Us versus It is sort of a turn-based game where firstly a team of players will take it in turns to build parts of this massive robot. Then this robot at the end of a certain amount of turns will actually, I'll show you here, but he will, once he's got all these pieces like laser eye, laser fist, atomic mine, things like that, movements and type of movements he can make, he will go across and destroy a city. So that's like a two-phase game where you build the robot and then he goes across and destroys the city and you've got to defend the city. So this might be something worthwhile looking into. Weapons of zombie destruction. This is similar to the other game, Zombie 9000, Monster Hunter 9000 that I showed you just now, but with more zombies in it. I have actually got a board game full of 100 plastic zombies if you want to make something like this there. So if you wanted to do that, it's yeah, you can do that without making artwork for it. They're awesome looking zombies, by the way. So yeah, this is a nice thing to look into. Of course, you can just make your own paper models. There's a whole slew of books that you can learn how to do this. What's that Japanese art called where you probably
Origami.
Origami, that's the one. Yeah, yeah. So this is kind of a form of origami if you want to get that, that intricate with it. Of course, you might just want to go straight to a 3D package and build your own. But you can also get that 3D printed now, can't you? Which is pretty awesome. That's just that's a thought. Right, cool. So that is my talk over with. I will point out some links to stuff. So firstly, if you want to build your own paper-based games, I would suggest going to the Game Crafter. This is an excellent website kind of service that is full of, firstly, people's games that they've made, but secondly, you can buy bits for your own games, and like they have a really nice selection of stuff. So let's see, products. So they got like nice printed game boards. You actually send them like a Photoshop file, and then they will print out on a nice enameled cardboard for your game board for you, how you printed it out. So you just send them like a nice pretty PSD file of stuff that you want. They do all kinds of boards as well, which is pretty cool. So for all your needs, there's loads of bits for games as well you can get. I'm trying to find where they are. Large box, oh yeah. Yeah, so you can get hex pieces, put the hex on someone, or cards, decks of cards, custom cards, files for things, just bits and pieces, so you can buy all these bits and plastic pieces and stuff like that, so you can build your own custom Monopoly set if you really wanted to. And instruction sets, they can print them out for you on nice paper. So it's pretty awesome. It's not too expensive either. It's, I mean, you have to pay a bit of money, and it's shipped in from America, I believe. I don't know if they've got a European distributor yet, but it's a nice place to start. Free bits, so like I promised you earlier, I'll show you the Piece Pack website. So if you go to the printable version, you'll get the PDFs for all of the Piece Pack pieces, so you can print them out on paper and then cut them out for yourself. I think there's somewhere around here where you can actually buy a nice set of Piece Pack pieces. If not, you can probably Google it, and there should be shops that would sell these in combination. Some people actually carve their own out of wood, if you really wanted to do that. But yeah, I'll show you actually. Okay, so Piece Pack wooden box. So yeah, people get quite obsessive about these things and make like some beautiful sets for their Their pieces. Oh, look, there's a there's a pieces for a train track. I'm not sure if that's quite right. Okay, cool. Go on Google search. So there's also some discussion forums that you might want to check out if you're interested in board games. So there's Board Game Geek is the main one. There's also a couple of Reddit pages that you might want to check out. I'll also just repeat these here. I'll share you guys in on this Google Doc, and you can download it and go wild. Generators. So these are really interesting. Oh, there we go. Interesting generators for board game ideas and mechanics and things. So it does usually give you a random, so this actually gives you a random set of mechanics, theme and victory in a constraint. This one never seems to work. Oh, here we go, you have to actually click it. So yeah, each time it will actually randomly generate some actual game mechanics for a game, and then you can make your game out of that. That's pretty interesting. Donjon is an awesome place for generating stuff. You can generate worlds, like mini world, like a fractal world generator. So here we go. Let's create another random world. There we go. I can't actually spin it around or anything, but that's pretty cool. You've also got a fantasy name generator. Monstrous names. So Azadus. Don't know what that word says. That's spelled wrong. Abidin. Yeah. But yeah, and you can have orcish names, drow names. You've got common names, humans. But it's pretty cool. You've also got random generators. It doesn't say what it randomly generates. It just fantasy, random fantasy. Is this the right website? I don't know. Random fantasy quests. Right. So yeah, you can generate a quest. So a wealthy aristocrat named Forties or Forts seeks a company of adventurers to discover the fate of an order of scholars and mages lost in a Lelandi forest. Is this in Wales? However, the quest is a track. And and it goes on, so it generates that every time. So I think if I reset the page, it will actually generate me a different quest. A frantic dwarf named Gary. Gary the dwarf. Really? Hello, I'm Gary. Yeah. Random locations. So I mean, this is really cool. You know, he's got loads and loads of tools like this that you would want to check out. The ones that might be more interesting for you guys would be a random dungeon generator. So this will actually generate a random dungeon. You can actually construct it, and it will go to a separate page and generate like a large random dungeon for you. You can have loads of settings for it. So here's your key, where you've got like a door, archways, secret places, things like that. And you're like, okay, well I want a hex grid one. Yeah, let's do that. Where's the generator? What's the go button? Ah. Anybody see a go button on here? Or do I just click the page?
Done automatic, isn't it?
Is it? No, I didn't notice it. Oh yeah, it is actually. It's got hex on there. Well spotted. That's not really that impressive. I thought it would be kind of all in hex. Okay. Don't use the hex. Right. But yeah, you can print these out, so you can download them as PDF and things like that. And, you can actually have different styles of stuff. But it's really awesome. It's a really awesome tool. Oh look! Oh, lovely marble effect. Oh, isn't that beautiful? But he's got like just loads of these little tools for like different things. He's got like a random inn generator. Oh cool, I love random inns. What we got? The Silver Cask. In a market ward northwest of the Merchant's Gate, its neighbours include the office of the male elf money changer named Armin. They have really rubbish names on these, don't they? And the workshop of the male dwarf jeweller called Uncle Matt. But like, if you see it as like a way to initially, create your game. If you want to have like a story-based game, or you want to have a mechanics-based game or whatnot, this is a good one for generating random stuff to go in that game. That's actually a good point. Something that I wanted to nail down before you guys like start your own projects is, I think from the start, from experience, I would say the best way to start off is to decide how the game is going to be, how the player skills in the game are going to be based. Because you've got like a paper-based game like Cards Against Humanity, which is based on humour. That's how the player wins. It's the funniest, retort wins. Whereas like other games, like say Rummy or something like that, would be strategy-based, or something like, say, Snap, that would be luck-based. So you probably want to nail down like what kind of skill the player would need to be working on before you start designing the game. So that way you can actually nail everything around, construct it, everything around doing that. So what else we got here? There are, oh yeah, the virtual tabletop, yes. I'll just go over a couple of other things first. So Fabletop, so I just find it a funny name, but it's actually a really cool online service where you can have pixel art in your browser role-playing games, and you can actually sign up to this and then play games against each other. So people can sign up to your game. You can be a game master, like Patrick Moore, and you can be in charge of your own game, and then people can come along and sign in and then join in and play your quests, and then you can build your own mini quests. So that might be something you want to check out. Board Game Arena. I think this is a piece of downloadable software which does a similar type of thing, but it requires a little bit more setup. But these systems often have a free system, as far as I know. Got pointed out to me by a student a couple of years ago. I would advise you to go and check these guys out if you want to see what virtual tabletop is. There are other services. So Fantasy Grounds does a pretty similar thing. I think this might be a downloadable thing, whereas I think Roll20 is played in the browser, although there is an app you can get for it. But yeah, go check those guys out. There's a couple of books that I want to recommend to you guys. So Challenges for Game Designers. This is an excellent book for game design generally, but it focuses on actually building like paper-based games and then building to digital after that. It's made by Brenda Brathwaite, who I think is now Brenda something else. She got married to somebody else, but she was one of the game designers on a lot of old school RPG games. I can't remember the name of them right now, but she was responsible for the game design for a lot of really old school RPG games, and she's quite famous in that community. But it's a really good book. I recommend it. And there's this one that is specifically about actual tabletop games that you might want to check out at some point. I did get that on Kindle. I haven't had a chance to actually read it, but I have bought it and it's in my Kindle. There's a few articles here that you might want to check out as well. So, designing for low tech. So this is probably more suited to what you guys are doing right now, which is paper prototyping a digital game or interactive thing. Same with this here as well. I'll flash these guys up. So these are all on the Game Career Guide, which is part of Gamma Sutra, so you might want to go and check that out. And that's what the Siren song, yeah. But yeah, so this is the kind of thing that often happens when you're making a paper prototype of a game. So you have a bunch of bits, and it all looks a bit like sort of strewn around and a bit random until you actually play the game. Cool. Right. So that's that over with. Right. So paper prototyping. So we've got a bunch of bits down here.